everyone to please take a seat. Thank you. This is a very important night for Malvern Prep. It's an annual event in which we try to share as much information with you as we can and to answer any questions that you might have. Whenever Malvern has something important to do, we begin with prayer. And I'd like to begin, since this is an important evening, to begin our assembly tonight with this prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. St. Augustine writes in his rule, "The reason for our coming together is that you may live in harmony, being of one mind and one heart, intent upon God." So in that spirit, let us pray. Almighty Father, we gather together this evening, many of us after a hard and hectic day, not simply as parents or teachers or administrators or trustees. We gather together as one community, the family of the school that we love. Lord, you are both perfect unity and the source of truth and love. Through the good prayers of our Holy Father, St. Augustine, make of us this evening one mind and one heart, so that Malvern Prep may flourish in harmony, be recognized for its pursuit and profession of the truth, and grow stronger through its firm unity and exceptional love. We ask this in the name of Jesus, our Lord. Amen. St. Augustine, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. I want to spend just a moment to talk about Malvern, its mission, and its vision. Since 1842, Malvern has done two things, in my mind, exceptionally well. I can testify to it from 73 to 16. From 1842 to 1972, I just take it for granted. The two things are, we are a very good college preparatory school. And the second thing is that we have preached the message of the gospel from the bottom of our hearts to each young man who has graced our campus. Those two things still remain today. Faith formation, teaching our kids, modeling for our kids in the ways of God and the gospel, is a primary concern for us. And we don't hesitate to do it. We challenge our kids. It's very important. The education, beginning in 1842, up until now, and into the future, has been student-centered. What does that mean? Well, it means things as simple as when a kid goes to sign up for a course, he signs up for the course he wants or needs. It doesn't matter if the section's full. I remember going in college, if you didn't get there early enough to get the course you wanted, they just told you, sorry, that course is filled, you have to take it next semester. It doesn't happen at Malvern, at least as much as we can prevent it from happening. The student-centered approach says whatever the kid wants to take or needs to take, parents want that for him also, that's what he'll take. But it also pertains to the delivery of instruction. I teach a course in MECO. It's called MECO, Malvernians Encounter Christ and Others. It's the course that runs the senior retreat program. The great thing about that course is that the students take ownership for the material of the weekends. There are 9 or 10 seniors each year who lead that program. And they do it in a spectacular way because they had a good experience on their weekend. They want to make sure that their classmates have a good experience on theirs. It's not about the grade. It's about the task at hand. And these guys throw themselves into it, heart and soul. That's student-centered learning on their part. They're not learning just for a grade. They're learning because there's something that needs to be done, and they're the ones who want to do it, are charged with doing it. That's the secret of the whole program in some ways. That and the power of God on the weekend. So student-centered, you're going to hear that term a lot, student-centered learning. It's part of the Malvern tradition. It takes various formats. It looks different from one decade to another, but it's always about the importance of the student in the learning process. There are people on this campus who have a vision for that, and I'm one of them. And one of them is the chair of our Board of Trustees. His name is Steve Clothing. And he has a lot to say, always. And tonight, he has tamped it down a little bit, right? He's not going to harangue us. But he does have some very important ideas that I think it's very important that we hear. So without any further ado, I'd like to call to the podium Mr. Steve Clothing, Chair of the Board of Trustees.
To adjust this up a little bit, I think. Well, thank you, Father. Welcome, everyone. Before I start and make my remarks, over the last few years, this really started with Frank Hallinan. We started to introduce the trustees that were in the room. So I'd ask all of the trustees just to please stand. If you would, just introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your affiliation to Malvern, how long you've been a trustee, maybe your committees, maybe some interesting information that you'd like someone else to know. I'll start. As Father said, I'm Steve Clothing. I am a past parent, 2 boys, 10 and 13. I've been affiliated with Malvern for 13 years, trustee for 7, been on most committees, and most notably strategic planning. So why don't we start? I was raised by my mother, so ladies first, please. Terrific. Kathy, please. Great, thank you. Ed, please.
My name is Ed Leva. I'm my 4th year on the board. I'm the investment committee and the subcommittee and also the finance committee. I did not have the good fortune of attending Malvern in the Midwest, but I had 3 sons who attended here. Ed and Bill, Dan, 02, 03, 06. They were all fortunate enough to be echo leaders. Great blessing for them, and they still refer to it as a transformational event in their life, probably most of the life of all the students around them.
Fabulous. Father Gary.
Father Gary, I had the blessing of graduating this year. I've been on the board for 6 years. The ones I'm on right now are always in addition and diversity.
Thanks. Joe?
Joe Bachman. I have 3 sons. 2 have attended here, 1 graduated 2012, 2014. Sophomore is graduated from school. This is my first year, but I've been on the SBA since 2013.
Great. Thanks a lot. Paul.
Paul Floyd, I have 2 boys. One, DJ, graduated in 2012, now have a Notre Dame player lacrosse, and Patrick, who's a senior year now, playing football lacrosse. Facilities, finance, and
Joe.
I'm Joe Davis. I graduated here in 1999. I'm actually also I sit on the investment committee on Malvern for a number of years. My son is 7th grade.
Wonderful. And John.
I'm John Glenn. 3 sons, Danny, graduated at 14, Chase 15 now.
Yeah. And best for last, Kevin Trainer.
I have 5 boys, 14, 16, next year, I'll get 18, one, chair of the facility board now, and also,
Wonderful. Thanks. Everybody have a seat. That's great. And Father and Christian are also on the board. And there's actually 29 of us, and some couldn't be here due to travel schedules, but it's a great group. They're smart, they're energized, and most importantly, they're engaged, and just happy to have them. Thought you guys would like to meet them. So what I want to talk a little bit about is just where we are right now, and then we're obviously going to talk about where we want to go. So where we are is we're currently wrapping up a strategic plan that we started in 2009. So we're going to end that on June 30th, 2016. It was a long process. We really got into it, and it was quite a bit of work. But in the plan, we did quite a few things. There was a lot of strategies, a lot of tactics, and I'm just going to talk about a couple of them. And one that we're very proud of is strengthening our college counseling process. Just this year, we were delighted to hear the results for what happened in the fall. And you have your early decision, you have your early action, now you have your early restricted action. And so exciting stuff. And I'll just throw these out there. 4 to Boston College, 2 to Georgetown, 2 to UVA, Harvard, 5 to Notre Dame, 5 to Penn, 2 to Brown, 2 to Bucknell, 2 to F&M, Richmond, and the list goes on and on. And some of our trustee emeriti have been trustees since maybe 1920 or so, and they say this is probably the best results they've seen in 50 years. So I have to congratulate Ron and all the faculty in the upper school. Did a terrific job, and obviously all the parents of all those young men. It's really great to see. We've also begun in this plan to provide the exceptional experience that was truly student-centered. Father talked about it. It's been part of the plan from the beginning. We did this by teaming teachers in the 6th grade, then in the 7th grade this year, and then we're going to do it in the 8th grade next year. We've also utilized a block schedule so that we could offer our students more time for collaboration, discussion, and deeper learning. And we provided professional development opportunities for our teachers through the Summer Institute, for our in-service days and reverse C schedules. So focusing a lot in that area. We also, in this plan, began to offer better human resources support to our faculty. We have almost 140 employees, and up until last year, we had never had an HR function. So we do now. So we have a director of human resources, and we've made transparent our salary structure. We've rewritten our faculty staff handbook. We have begun to evaluate our overall benefits and policies so that we can become, frankly, the employer of choice in the area. And there's a couple other schools around here who try to do that too. And so we're happy with where we are. Most importantly, we've increased our endowment and we've reduced our debt. And those are 2 good things. That really, from a financial stability, that really puts us in a good place now and in the future. And I have to congratulate Ted. He was pointed out by Paul over there. I mean, he's done a terrific job on the financial side. Ed Leva, who introduced himself over here, is our treasurer, officer of the board, and he's involved in that as well. So there's a lot more. I could spend more time doing it, but we do have time limits. So let's go to... Hey, all right, did that right. Okay, so where we are going. So we talked a little bit about where we are now. So this is where we're going. After evaluating where we are today, we held a strategic planning retreat in the fall. We have been soliciting feedback online and through focus groups. We hired outside consultants to come in here and take a look at our academic programs, as well as the other programs that we offer. We did also go through a PACE evaluation. That's something we do, I believe, every 10 years, which is really digging into everything that we do for accreditation and so forth. And so it was a great time to look at all of the things that we're doing and where we are. And all of this information, which is a lot of information, allowed us to crystallize our three main areas of focus for 2016 through 19. First is our community. We are refocusing our attention on our culture and the values, which makes Malvern special. We are continuing this initiative with a workshop specifically designed, including a representative group of both faculty and staff, and that's actually on April 4th. But the key point here is what we're doing is we are going to align our values to our increased academic rigor. We're going to move those both forward at the same time, and that's a key focus of the board. Additionally, we will continue our efforts around diversity and inclusion. We've been training our faculty staff through the SEED program and recently offered professional development to the board in a retreat that we had several weeks ago, so that we all can evolve together as a unified and inclusive environment where we all feel welcome and everybody feels that their talents and strengths can be contributed to the greater good. Second in our goals and the strategic planning goals is academic innovation. We'll continue to work, continue the work we've done in the middle school and move it intentionally into the upper school. And a group of teachers, a team, 9th and 10th grade teachers, have been planning and discussing what that experience will look like. We call it the academy model in the middle school, and we're going to be moving a version of that up into the upper school. And their goal is essentially to ensure that academically the rigorous approach to deeper learning is also explorative and experiential for the students in the upper school, as it is in the middle school currently. We've established in the last plan, as part of counseling actually, we've established a great relationship with key colleges, Notre Dame being one of those colleges, and those guys have done a terrific job with it. But there's side benefits to that. So we'll continue to seek feedback from colleges and universities. I believe in science very recently. We had some questions about courses and where to go in that environment, and our Director of College Counseling back there, Ian Harkness, who's also a Gettysburg College grad like myself, went out and put a survey together and sent it out to some of the top colleges, asked their opinion on it. They gave their opinion. The feedback was quick, but it allowed us to design how we're going to progress our students through those science courses, which is terrific, obviously, for your sons. And lastly, and most importantly, and I know a topic of everybody, is financial stability, and the number one topic there, of course, is affordability. It is the number one topic for independent schools and colleges in the country, probably globally, and it certainly is a key consideration of parents. And the board will spend its time to define what that means at Malvern Prep. We continued to address this issue with a slight increase we had this year. It actually was one of our smallest or lowest in many years. And again, I do a shout out to Ted over here, who works very hard to make that happen. Where that money goes is really to faculty and staff salaries, as well as to increase financial aid. Now, this is for Vic and development. We were able to do that, frankly, because we've been increasing our endowment. And by increasing our endowment, we do a draw off of it. The more money we have in endowment, we do a 5% draw on that. Allows us then to funnel that money into operations. So the moral of the story is the bigger the endowment, the less pressure on tuition, and that's a good thing. And we're proud of where we've come with that. We've come quite a long way. As we look forward, it'll be important for us to consider all the ways in which we will continue to provide the highest value, but at the most affordable cost to our parents. And we understand that. That's really many of the people on the board have children and have boys here. And so everybody is sensitive and in tune to that item, and we're definitely going to focus on it. So, you met our board. As a board, we're engaged. We're busy. We're focused, and we're here to serve. And so that's what this board is all about. So thank you very much on behalf of the board, and I appreciate you coming tonight. And let me introduce now Christian Tabbitt, our head of school. So thank you, Christian.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for everybody who showed up tonight. If you're watching either on Periscope or on the live stream, thank you for tuning in that way as well. I want to point to a couple of resources on our website, just so you know that there's a place you can go to tonight and after tonight to find some basic information, actually some complex information as well. What we like to do with the state of the school is not focus too much on data dumping. So the next couple of slides are really here just to highlight for you the fact that this stuff is on our website. You can find this really easily. If you have your smartphone, you can pull it out right now and you'll see the exact same thing that I'm showing you on this screen. So I want to point out two data points, not because they're more important than any of the other data points, but because I think they're part of a story that makes a lot of sense about the Malvern Prep that your sons are experiencing today, or if you're an alumnus that you may have experienced recently, or that you can know some future friars are experiencing right now. So on this first screen, in the bottom right corner, you can see that number 167. What you probably can't do is read the text. And that number refers to the total number of students who were involved in our global exchange program this past year. That's a significant number. Now, it does include some middle school students, but think about it. Out of about 640 students, almost 170 of them participated in some shape or form in our global exchange program. And because we take really seriously our vision to be a leading independent Catholic school, that necessarily involves bringing into our classrooms a global perspective and a global orientation. And it also means offering students the opportunity to interact with foreign exchange students when they come to Malvern. So students from Panama, from Spain, from other parts of from the world as well. But it also means giving our students the opportunity to visit those places if their families are inclined and they're fortunate enough to do that. So I'm really proud of the fact that 167 of our boys have participated in some shape or form in the global exchange program. Again, there's a lot of other numbers here, and I encourage you to visit the website to see what some of those data points are. This is all on one page on the website. All the numbers didn't fit on one screen, so on this second slide you're seeing basically the bottom half of that web page. And the number I want to draw attention to here is far right-hand column in the middle, 130. And actually this number is misleading because it understates what we've done. 130 refers to the number of college reps who have visited our campus this fall. But what it does is it misses the many athletic coaches from colleges who have visited our coaches. It also misses, probably most importantly, the countless phone calls and emails that our college counselors exchange with admissions officers and our college reps at the schools that your sons, or if you're an alumnus, perhaps you attended with the schools that your sons would like to attend. And Ian Harkness, who's our Director of College Counseling, he knows firsthand because he came to to us out of the admissions office at Gettysburg, he knows firsthand how important the relationship is between an admissions rep or officer and the school that he or she is assigned to. And our college counselors are expert at developing and cultivating those relationships. Oftentimes in those phone calls or those email exchanges, we learn what we can do better, which means that we can help your sons have a better chance of getting into the most selective and best fit school for him and for you guys. So I'm also really proud of that. What I'd like to do now is just tell you 3 really quick stories about the current state of learning and the future of learning at Malvern, and I think really in the world. So what you see here is a picture. Unfortunately, since we built this slideshow before this afternoon, I picked the wrong team to show you, but it does illustrate the point. So this is a team of students from our social entrepreneurship class. This is the first year that we've offered this. It's the first ever, besides MECO, it's the first ever 100% project-based learning class that we've offered in our upper school. And the short version is we have 4 teams of students of 5 or 6 per team, and each team has a teacher attached to it as a coach, and each of those teams by themselves as students decided what social impact area they wanted to address, and then they've begun to design solutions. And what you see here is a photograph from the mid-December presentation to a panel of CEOs, and you can see the backs of those CEOs' heads here. So these guys in the class had to prepare a presentation on the first phase of their work, their social entrepreneurship work. And they got feedback from the CEO panel. On March 22nd, they're going to go back in front of the same exact CEO panel to present phase 2 of their work. They'll get more feedback, and then they'll go in front of that same panel in the middle of May for their final presentations. This was taken at Villanova University at their Innovation, Creativity, and Entrepreneurship Center. So as I said, I picked the wrong team because the story I want to tell you actually unfolded today in real time. So one of the teams of students, which is not this one, a different team of students went up to New York City with their teacher coach, and they visited Kind Inc., which is the company that makes Kind bars. So if you ever go into Wawa, I'm sure you've seen Kind bars at the counter there, which are healthful snacks. And this team is focused on figuring out a way to help kids in low-income urban environments learn how to identify the right foods to eat, and then to create incentives for them to choose the right foods. So to make a long story short, they came up with a series of steps which involve a website and an app. They've sort of gamified learning how to eat well. They've created a really ingenious set of games. And what they decided was, or what they asked themselves rather, was, well, what if we could get a company that's devoted to healthful eating and acts of kindness in the community and get them to partner with us? So what they did was they reached out to the Kind Corporation, whose president just happens to be a Malvern grad, so it sort of greased the skids a little bit there. And they were really interested. And at the same time, this team of students was courting the Vetri Foundation in Philadelphia, which is a foundation that was built out of the Vetri restaurant empire. But they're also committed as a nonprofit to making sure that kids in urban schools have access to healthful foods and learn how to eat well. And so they've brokered this partnership between the Vetri Foundation and Kind Bars Inc. and this team of Malvern Prep students, and we learned today that Kind is drawing up an agreement that will specify the amount of Kind Bars that they are going to donate for this initiative to test it out to see if it will work. This was driven 100% by the students. They certainly were coached and guided by their teacher. They were also mentored by a Malvern alumnus who is himself an entrepreneur. They got some great feedback during this mid-December presentation to the CEO panel. But it's a great example of the current state and the future state of learning, which is really about solving problems. And because we're a Catholic school, it's not just about solving any problems. It's about solving problems with a social consciousness. It's about solving problems for the good of society. It's about solving problems that help those who are not as fortunate as we are. So we're really proud of that, and I'm excited about that success for that team of students today. By the way, the other 3 teams in this class are also on the cusp of partnerships. One team is going to partner, we hope, with the second largest charter school in Philadelphia. Another team is going to partner with City Team in Chester, which helps the homeless. And the final team is hoping to partner with someone whose name I can't remember at the moment, but I will come back to that. I also want to talk a little bit about different kinds of partnerships. So Steve Cloding mentioned University of Notre Dame, and he also mentioned the survey that our college counseling office sent out to many, many colleges. Part of that came out of a fall one-day workshop that we ran with the University of Notre Dame and their Center for STEM Education. So their director came to our campus, and we used the mod space for the middle school right over here. We brought in some executives from local corporations that have a national, international presence. These are companies like Siemens and other STEM tech companies. And we envisioned what a future of learning could look like in a STEM environment for our students, as well as for students at our all-girls partners with Notre Dame and Villa. That partnership with Notre Dame is not a one-day thing. We're talking with them about other things like a character profile for college admissions. We're talking with Villanova about a partnership to design an online certificate in engineering thinking. We're talking with the University of Delaware about a partnership to provide students with dual enrollment credit so that they can get college credit for their social entrepreneurship class here. And these are just 3 examples out of several different conversations that we're having with higher education partners, again, to provide you with a return on your investment. We know that you guys make a significant financial investment in Malvern, and that's an investment that we know provides a lifetime of dividends, a lifetime of spiritual dividends, a lifetime of learning and academic dividends, but also a lifetime of dividends in entrepreneurship in the broadest possible sense, which just means engaging the world in that problem-solving mode. So that's also really exciting stuff. And then the last story is captured by this photo of Chris Herron. Many of you were here for Chris Herron's talk in October. He was our distinguished speaker for the fall. And if you were here, then you will remember the very powerful story that Chris told about his own very long struggle with addiction, how he came out of that struggle on the right side. And this is a photo of an opportunity that we try to offer our students at every possible turn, which is a small group conversation with an expert. And in this case, these are all captains of our athletics teams. Chris Herron is a former college and NBA basketball player, and so he had a special message for them in a small group setting before his conversation with the broader community in the Duffy Center. And you can see on that blackboard all those little Post-it notes. Those Post-it notes contained questions that these captains of their athletic teams wanted to ask Chris about leadership, about excellence in athletics, and also about the struggles to resist the temptations to use drugs, alcohol, and other things that are addictive. These are the questions that are among the most urgent questions for your sons, and we're really proud that we were able to bring him, with the generosity, by the way, of members of the parent and the alumni community who sponsored Chris's visit here. So that's another part of the formational experience that we offer your sons. And I want to use that as a segue into introducing our next speaker, who's someone that I've gotten to know over the last few years. When I think about Malvern alumni, when I think about the young men whom we form and send out into the world, this person is at the very top of the list of people who I am really proud of. It makes me proud to be associated with Malvern. I'm not an alumnus. Knowing Ryan Murphy makes me wish that I had gone to Malvern. This is a young man who explored many different areas in the athletics, in the arts, in academics when he was here at Malvern. He went on to the Rhode Island School of Design, which is a leading edge school, not only in design, but really in public engagement. And one of the things that Ryan did during his time at RISD was speak to Congress about STEM and STEAM initiatives in education. How many students, when they're in college, can say that they actually spoke before Congress and helped craft a proposal about what STEM and STEAM learning should look like? And that's an extraordinary thing. And now he is a designer at SY Partners. And he's going to talk to you a little bit about his own experience as a Malvern student, as an alumnus, and I think kind of talk a little bit about our mission. So I'm happy to introduce Ryan Murphy from the class of 2011.
So Father Flynn just told me not to screw up, so I think I will give it my best go. And I know a lot of the faculty here, and I hope that coming back this evening can kind of be twofold. One, for the parents who are here to be able to see what it looks like when someone leaves Malvern, goes to college and beyond. I graduated 5 years ago. And I think for the faculty, and maybe almost more importantly, be able to see kind of all of the fruits of your labor. Anyone that I knew here, everything that I will share tonight is so much a reflection of what you gave me while I was here. So it's a kind of initial thank you, and hopefully this is a reflection of kind of why you get up out of bed every morning and come here. And so to start, I'll go through basically 3 chapters. One, brief snapshot of what my time at Malvern was like, a little bit more extended on some of the experiences I had at college at RISD, and then briefly about a project that I'm working on now professionally, which is actually around education. So I love this quote by John Locke, that education begins the gentleman, and definitely for Malvern, it is, the gentleman is the heart of kind of what we do. I started here in 2004 as a 6th grader. I'm a lifer, so this is almost embarrassing to show. If you remember Livestrong bracelets, I realize, it's like dating myself, almost, these things. And worked on a variety of stuff at Malvern, different poems. This was a poem from Mr. Wasson about wanting to go to the University of Miami, which my younger brother ended up doing. And I was always interested in the arts at Malvern. Right when I came here, when I was in 8th grade, we were building the Duffy Center, and so the Duffy Center had a huge impact on my time here. And I also ran varsity cross country and did, probably 8 to 10 different sports while I was here, so I don't want to overshadow that too. As you can see by my physical build, I'm not going to be a professional athlete, so that quickly kind of went away in favor of some more artistic talent. This is one of the first things I made here, which Miss Plows is in the back kind of wincing at how awful this looks. But slowly things got better and better, and thank you to the faculty here. I came out with a portfolio that was pretty strong and was able to get me into a top design school. And just a few more images from my time here. These are all kind of low res, but we won the Interact Basketball Championship our senior year. Brian Swanek, who's an alumni from my same year, is in this photo kind of going crazy and led a lot of this initiative. And since it is, there are a lot of parents here, these are the parents I had kind of going away for graduation. And I told Father Flynn I would embarrass him with one photo, although this is hardly embarrassing since Father Flynn always looks good in pictures, I think. So this is our group of MECA leaders. I was a MECA leader while I was here, and I think it's fascinating to see now where everyone has gone. One of the MECA leaders is going to be drafted this year in the NFL, hopefully in the first round, probably more like the second or third round. One of them is doing Augustinian teaching in the West Coast. Someone's doing sports business stuff in New York. Another friend is doing banking. Brian's here, could talk about sort of his life right now. I mean, it's fascinating to see the different directions that people can go. But so for the direction that I kind of went was to this obscure art school called RISD, which I remember you just heard the list of people and where they're going for colleges. I'm just like, holy crap, that's amazing. And when we had our kind of reviews of everyone's going off, you're going to Brown or Penn or Notre Dame or Villanova, and it's like, I'm going to the Rhode Island School of Design. It's like, where the hell is that? Like, what are you talking about? And the reason you might know RISD is probably through 2 pop culture references. One, Seth MacFarlane, the career of Family Guy, is a big RISD grad. And the founders of Airbnb are also RISD grads, and now actually pretty good friends of mine. So that's sort of within the world how you might know RISD. And I think what's probably most interesting about my time at RISD in comparison to Malvern is how different of schools they were. When I was here, I think I was looking for something that was very much like Malvern in the world, and kind of stumbled upon something completely different in a way that was very, very sort of powerful in the way that I would actually end up developing. I think here I got such a sense of the Augustinian mission and a real breadth of expertise, and that when at RISD I was exposed to a much more maker mode kind of education. All of my classes were studio-based. They were something like 6 hours at a time. We were building things, trying things out. It's very much kind of this historically designed mentality that now within business and education has also gotten to get a lot of a foothold in terms of how we teach and learn. So it's everything from being in a lab, the nature lab of all of these crazy animals, to big textile looms. And the way that I kind of sum up what RISD does, more than just being, can you design like a toaster or a refrigerator, is that it's less of like design a running shoe, and it would be more of design a way to get from point A to point B. Which, when you think about the question this way, you could do a jetpack or a pool or an alligator with wings. I mean, there's so many different ways you can think about a problem. And RISD, in a real way, gave me this perspective on the problems that I was sort of going through. And I think that kind of with that Malvern backing is really where I was able to take off. So I studied industrial design, which is a program that's very sort of physical, but what I've drawn out of that is a lot more of the strategic and sort of systems level design stuff, which I will talk about in a little bit. So the sort of portfolio spread that I had in high school eventually kind of got updated and modernized and started to look a lot better. While I was in college, I was on the board of the Brown RISD Catholic community, so a quick plug for Mom that kept my faith alive in college, and for Father Flynn. And so this is something I was involved in all the way through college, and was very much sort of a real sort of driver of the work that I was able to do. And so, as Christian mentioned, a few of the other projects I did while at college, I think pushed sort of where I was trying to go beyond just the classroom or the studio in a way that I think now has really given me a lot of expertise. The first was a entrepreneurship group that I started, which, similar to what's happening at Malvern now, it's actually interesting to see a similar kind of structure. We were sort of working with teams of designers and students from Brown and RISD to basically build startups. We secured a variety of funding. We were able to put together different teams of students. We had a lot of different speaking engagements. This is Paul English, the co-founder of kayak.com. We had the founder of Reddit in, a bunch of different people to, similar to what Christian was just sharing, speak about their expertise in a way that I think gave students a sort of an aspiration for where they could go. Another big project I was involved in was the whole STEM to STEAM movement. There's a huge sort of push right now within science, technology, engineering, and mathematics from a federally funded perspective to put more money into these kind of core expertise areas, because historically they've driven sort of economic growth and job creation in the future. And one of the things that at RISD we were really pushing for, and that I was pushing for, was to say that with this sort of artist and design mentality, coupled with these other disciplines, is really when you start to unlock things and make things happen. And when I had that Steve Jobs quote up earlier about creativity is just connecting things, this is 100% what that's about. And so I think when you see that we have 130 students in global exchange programs and things like that, for me what that says is you're able to get such a diverse sort of level of experiences to pull from when you're creating things. And I think that's so important. And that, for me, while I was at Malvern and beyond, has been extremely important. So we ran, I think, 6 or 7 different congressional briefings on the Hill. This is the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and we were the Senate Majority Leader, and we sort of pitched to her this whole project around STEM to STEAM. It was about a 6-year-long project that I came in during the middle of, and actually this November finally passed in Congress, and is now, STEAM is sort of a federally funded and legislated initiative, which is awesome. And it's amazing the sort of effort it takes to get through some of these things in a way that you actually kind of see them through to the end. And so I spoke as well to the American Association for the Advancement of Science, AAAS, on a big sort of 40th year anniversary they had on how art and science policy are kind of coupled together. So I'm sort of breezing through these things intentionally, and I can touch on anything more specifically afterwards, but I hope it gives a breadth of kind of some of the things that I've done. Work-wise, I had very different experiences in the summers. I traveled to India and did a variety of design sort of consulting work with NGOs over in India. I worked for IBM down in Austin, Texas for a summer, and on a paper with Microsoft, and then helped on a startup with the MIT Media Lab around sort of economic development in different parts of Africa. And then through a fellowship I got at RISD, I've always been interested in this kind of global perspective on how design could play a role. Did a project with the World Economic Forum around rethinking data and how we look at data in the world. And part of sort of this project and working there for 3 months was this animation that I ended up producing that was displayed in Davos in 2013, which was pretty awesome to be a designer in a very non-design setting, but driving a lot of thinking that people kind of reconsidered how they looked at data and what they could do. And so the first thing I showed was, okay, here's the visual talent that you think that you can get, and then out of that they saw the real kind of power of what someone from a creative background could do from the more strategic perspective. And so I ended up co-authoring 2 papers with the World Economic Forum on personal data, and sort of really shifted a lot of the dialogue to being more about people and how people actually use data, which seems intuitive, but when you have massive amounts of credit card data or massive amounts of telecom data, you're not really thinking about one person with a cell phone. You're thinking about, you know, data aggregation and things like that. So what we were trying to do is kind of shift the discussion to a more sort of human, a more personal approach. And through this work, I was I don't think elected is the right word, but selected for this group called 89 Plus, which honors artists and designers born after 1989 who are doing, I guess, interesting global design-related things, which was quite an honor and quite unexpected because most of my work is not so fine art related, but is more sort of design at systemic issue related. But I had the opportunity to speak in Mexico City at their annual design week, Zona Maco, at a new building that they had just opened. And then right now I have some work up at a gallery in Zurich, which is going to be moving this fall to Shanghai. So if anyone's going to be in Shanghai in the fall, I'll give you the name of the gallery where it's going to. And the piece was kind of a follow-up on the World Economic Forum work to think about how intuition and creativity plays out in a more data-driven world. And so one of the things that sort of precluded this was a big session that we did between the World Economic Forum, the World Bank, RISD, and a few other big sort of commercial data holder organizations to think about creative ways of looking at data that aren't just from an analytics perspective. And then finally, in terms of the sort of RISD piece, and this is something my mom is going to wince at a little bit, because there's a little bit of illegality in this project. I did a thesis project on the New York City subway system and the feeling of disorientation when you get out of the subway. So if you've ever been to basically any subway system in the world, but especially in New York, when you come out of the subway, you kind of end up looking around like, I think I know where I'm going, or you see the World Trade Center or the Empire State Building and you start going one way, and then half a block later you turn around and are back the other way. And so what I did was prototype a variety of different solutions to essentially solve this problem. Different things on the turnstiles, stuff on the ceilings, kind of all over the place, and ended up with these stairwell signs that I tested out in the 86th and Lexington station, and then basically produced at a very high quality on my own, almost mirror lookalikes to the real signs, and then installed them in the city in New York. And then this ended up getting a lot of press, and this is from Fast Company. This is Thrillist, helpful subway signs. Mashable called it genius, which I don't really know if it's genius, but it was still kind of a cool thing to be involved in. And I remember as I was putting this up, because actually this is technically vandalism, and it is illegal. So Malvern Prep, if you're supporting me as someone who's, fighting for good in all sorts of different ways. It was a cool project to be able to see, because at the same time I was talking with people at the MTA and the Department of Transportation, to see how slow things happen from just logistical perspective, from funding perspective, within some of these bureaucratic institutions, and trying to basically do the same thing but through the actual organizations and some of their lead people, while at the same time on like the bottom level thinking about how people actually navigate in the city and different ways of pinpointing sort of different solutions to make that happen. And I think that has always been my interest, is flying between those two levels of how do people think about the world and how do big decisions happen, and then at the same time, why do we show up for work every day? What makes us want to go to a gallery on the weekend or get home for dinner with our family? It's those kind of very human, very root level things that I think aren't often reflected in the way big decisions are made. And so I started working last year in New York at this company called SY Partners, which is a small design and strategy firm in Chelsea. So that's my office right there. So I came back down from New York to speak this evening, and then I'll be on 7 a.m. Amtrak tomorrow morning back to work. And our whole office is this kind of open office plan, a huge sort of overlap between business strategy, so people usually coming out of MBA programs, but also out of a variety of different fields, and then design, from graphic design, industrial design, all sorts of different, more creative fields. So this is kind of the feeling of what our office is. It's all sort of open plan, lots of whiteboards, Post-it notes, collaboration, all that kind of stuff. And the project I've been involved with for most of the year is this thing called the XQ Super School Project. And this was launched by Laurene Powell Jobs, Steve Jobs' widow, this past September, in an effort to rethink the American high school. So it's especially relevant, I think, in terms of what Malvern is doing right now, but it also highlights a lot of, I think, where Malvern needs to go. So there's a kind of quick video that they put out on this, which I'll share with you.
Together, let's rethink high school so that our graduates are prepared to face this new global economy in which we live.
At the end of the day, we need high school to be creating collaborators, problem solvers, and creators, and we have to make some big changes in high school to make that happen.
XQ is one of the greatest acts of love that I've seen in quite a while.
This is a great opportunity to literally reinvent how a high school is built, how it operates, and how our students learn.
And it's a competition. I venture to say right now that New Orleans is going to win.
Encourage your school or community to join XQ Super School Challenge. So come on, America! Together, we can do this!
So you know if Snoop Dogg's involved, that it must be legit, right? So I think it's been a fascinating project to be on, because it is touching on the American high school system in so many different parts of the country. And as part of this project, I got to go to New Orleans, to Jackson, Mississippi, to San Francisco, Chicago, Boston, DC, all these different places to see how mayors, how city leaders, how people in the private sector are looking at the future of education. And the disparities from a public school perspective in zip codes that could be right next to each other is astounding. And I think that if you are in public schools, you end up kind of based on where you live, getting a completely different level of education. And I think that within the private school system, it almost puts an extra level of oomph behind the need to really start pushing where education is going. One of the blessings of being on this project has been an ability to work with a lot of top educators in different areas on sort of what's the future, or what's the latest thinking on like brain science and how students learn? When do students form their identity, and when can those things change? All the way to school financing and things like that. And so there's a real sort of consensus within the education industry that, one, it sucks and it's really hard and it's like going to take a while, but two, it is so necessary, and that it's even harder within the public school system. So I think that Malvern really has a unique opportunity to push it and be sort of a model for what it means to be Augustinian, what it means to be sort of a new generation of leaders and learners. And the last thing I'll share sort of related to this project, which is kind of a personal promo. One of the things we got to work on and that I designed was this XQ design kit. And so for all the participants who joined this XQ project, we sent out these kits. They're pretty heavy. They have a bunch of different books on how to interview youth in your community, posters to kind of get you inspired. And regardless of your partisan politics, it was really cool that Barack Obama actually went through this and sort of played around with it. So this is Lorene Powell Jobs on the right. And then you know the guy on the left. So it was cool to work on something from totally phase one, what do we even want to do, and then have it come all the way through to now being implemented. And we printed maybe 5,000 of these that are all over the country, sort of helping people design a school. And so in terms of what's next now for me, and I think hopefully for the faculty, it's inspiring to see kind of where this journey has led me, where the next kind of step leads. SY Partners is part of this creative collective called Q, which is part of this Japanese holding company. And IDEO actually just got bought by Q as well, which is a very famous design firm. And there's essentially 7 key directives that we've identified as the future of what the things we want to work on. So if I had to say, what am I going to be working on in the next 20 years, it's more or less these 7 things were identified. Serving the needs of the global poor, designing new approaches to health, including aging and end of life, designing healthy and profitable food systems that can serve the needs of all, designing citizen-centered government services, designing the future of urban communities, anticipating the opportunities and challenges of new technologies, and finally, the future of work and the corporation itself. So I think that if you think about what Malvern's sort of mission is and how relevant it is for what top companies are trying to solve right now, it is spot on and has to be, I think, at the root of who we are like as students and as people. And so I'll end with this quote, which is one of my favorites from C.S. Lewis, about believing in Christianity as he believes in the sun, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. And I think what Malvern, what the faculty, what the community here taught me was that if I have sort of faith at the center, then everything else will be driven from that. And if it's sort of a lens with which I see the world, then all these other projects, all these other creative pursuits will kind of flow naturally from it and will sort of be fruitful. So, thank you.
I want to say 3 quick things before we do Q&A. First, and I'm not really sure exactly why, but for some strange reason, I'm feeling a lot less accomplished with my life. The second thing is I remembered the name of that 4th organization that one of our social entrepreneurship teams is going to partner with, and it speaks directly to what Ryan just said about the essence of a Malvern education. The 4th organization is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and that team of students is going up to New York City next week to meet with their chief medical officer. They've designed an app that targets at-risk adolescents, but what they call upstream at-risk adolescents, meaning kids who are maybe prone to depression or anxiety but haven't shown any symptoms yet. They may have difficult family situations or social situations, but they're far away from any sort of suicidal ideation or behaviors. But of course, that's exactly the group that needs the most attention because they're typically invisible invisible to most of us. And I had the good fortune of being up at the AFSP a couple of weeks ago with the mentor for this team of Malvern students who knows the chief medical officer there. And she said, for all the great work that the AFSP does, she said, we don't actually have a partnership with a single school. And she said, it wasn't until Malvern reached out to me that I said, how is that possible? That the most vulnerable population is a population that we haven't even really tried to address. And when she heard about the app that these students were designing and creating a paper prototype for, she said, well, could we partner with you guys? Could you guys bring in our content and our resources? So that's no guarantee that the partnership will necessarily become concrete, but certainly in this early stage, there's this opportunity for our students to have a material impact on the well-being, literally on the lives of people who are at risk of suicide. If that is not an expression of what you see up here, I don't know what is. And when I think about the purpose of a Malvern education or of any other Catholic education, I think one way of thinking about it is we are trying to help our young men learn what it means in a real, concrete, and experiential way, not just in an abstract or theoretical way, but in an experiential way, what it means to put your hands in, get them dirty in building the kingdom of God. That can sound really abstract. That can sound really kind of theoretical or ethereal. It could sound like something that you hear in church maybe on Sundays. But I'm pretty sure that when Jesus said it a couple thousand years ago, he was talking about this moment and the next moment and the next moment. And that's what our students are doing. And the third and final thing I'll say before taking Q&A is that, again, I couldn't have planned this. I literally had no idea it was going to happen today, but I had a couple of guests visiting campus from Camden Catholic, as a matter of fact. They were here to see what we do with our learning commons, with our innovative learning programs. And so without having planned it, I said, well, let's go take a look at the middle school learning commons. And we walked into the middle school learning commons, and what do I see but the middle school faculty and middle school students surrounded by students and faculty from Hope Partnership in Philadelphia. And if you know anything about Hope Partnership, you know that they serve at-risk, low-income students from the city of Philadelphia. And they're basically giving these kids a fighting chance at not just a great middle school education, but a chance to get into a great high school and a great college and to have a life that's different from the one that they've grown up, a better life. And I couldn't be more proud that Malvern teachers and students are giving what they can of themselves to help Hope's teachers and Hope's students have a better learning experience. But just as importantly, and Ryan said this, and I hope you heard it, the experience that our teachers and our students take away from those interactions will enrich our students and our teachers' lives and will enable them to be better, more creative, and more kind of mission-driven problem solvers. That's what we're about. That's why we're here. Anyway, thank you for your attention during the presentation portion, and now we'll open up the floor to questions. And I don't know if we're going to get any questions from our online audience, but I know that there's the opportunity for people to submit questions there as well. So what's on your mind? What can we clarify or elaborate for you? Yes. The question is, how is the block scheduling going? I would say it's been a mixed success, definitely more of a success than not. The things that have been successful have been the opportunities to learn, obviously in blocks of time, as opposed to much smaller and kind of uniformed increments of time. It used to be that classes were about 45 minutes, give or take, each. And when you take in transit time and the time it takes for kids to get settled in and get their heads in the right space, you're really talking about more like 30, 35 minutes. and that's not a lot of time to pick up speed and get things done. With the modified block schedule with 60 to 80-minute blocks of time, there's far more opportunity to do deeper dives and to do collaborative learning. And I think most of our teachers, if not all of them, would say that that part of it has been a great success. I know teaching, or in helping to teach, I should say, the social entrepreneurship class, we need those blocks of time for those kids to build enough steam up as they work on their projects. And Ryan mentioned that, and everybody here knows if you're in the workforce, that typically you work in teams and you have meetings, or you have brainstorms, or you have work sessions that last for a lot longer than typically 45 minutes or so. That doesn't mean that a 60 or 80-minute block is a replication of reality, but it better approximates both what they'll face in college and in the real world. So I would say that that's been a success. I would also say, from what I've observed and from what I've heard, that the reduced number, just the sheer quantity of classes per day, reduces some of the burden when it comes to homework. There's really no correlation. Many studies have shown there's really no correlation between the quantity of homework and the quality of student learning or student outcomes when it comes to standardized tests. So it's good. It's a good thing if students are using the unstructured time they have during the day, if they're using their study hall periods, and if they have fewer overall subjects for homework in any given night. It's a good thing if they're not spending 3, 4, 5 hours doing homework. So I would say that there's been a slight decrease in that pressure on students. I think one of the things that's been difficult is the fact that in an 8-day cycle, we meet 5 days for a full credit class. And if there's some day that drops off because it's a snow day or a holiday or some other reason, there can be some discontinuity, and I think that the starting and stopping can sometimes be very difficult for both teachers and students. And I also think that for the very same reason, if you're teaching 2 sections of English, and one of those sections has a 60-minute period today, and a different section of the same class has the 80-minute period today, but for some reason there's a variation in our schedule, it just throws things out of whack, and I think that can be difficult to just kind of balance out. But the good news is that we have these teams of faculty and staff working on lots of different things like this. There is a team that is devoted to nothing but fine-tuning our modified block schedule. And I think they're approaching a kind of final set of proposals for the faculty and staff to react to, really more the faculty than the staff. So I'm looking forward to hearing them pitch their ideas for an upgraded and fine-tuned version of the modified block. Yeah.
You talked about the experiential learning partnerships. What does that look like going forward when these boys graduate, and what happens to that partnership? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So the question is, we talked a little bit about emerging partnerships with different organizations for our current students, and as these students graduate, what might those partnerships look like as those students enter college and beyond? One thing I didn't talk about is the whole other set of non-academic experiential learning opportunities that students have, and I'll pause just for one moment to make a plug for something that you got an email about, which is our spring distinguished speaker, Dr. Samil Aladin from Finland, who's done a kind of a groundbreaking research study in Finland on brand bullying, so the way in which adolescents use brands that they purchase, whether it's clothing or otherwise, to kind of create negative social and peer pressure. Dr. Aladin is coming here to the United States. He's going to do some additional research here to extend his findings. He's asked to talk with Malvern students and Villa Maria students, and he's also going to present his findings to you in early April. And students who want to participate anonymously can do that through a survey in which their ID will just be a 4-digit number. But for those students who want to go a step further and share more personal experiences, they can opt into that as well. And we're going to design a project-based learning experience around that. So just as we have done with our previous distinguished speakers up to this point, we're going to present an opportunity for Malvern students to work on some project that would demonstrate their understanding of what bullying means and And there will be another opportunity to create a project that demonstrates their understanding of what brands are, and developing a keener awareness that when they make a decision, a purchase decision, or even when they get dressed in the morning, what does a brand mean, and how does that affect their decision making, which is something that most of us don't think about, and especially adolescents. So to get back to Julie's question, what do these partnerships mean as students go into college and beyond? Well, it's going to vary, I think, from student to student, but one of the great opportunities that students have now is to develop relationships. So I'll use the social entrepreneurship class as an example. The kids who are working with City Team, which is a nonprofit organization in Chester that serves the homeless, they are in personal contact with the executive director. So they email him, they call him, they visited twice. This is not a depersonalized set of interactions. This is a highly personal interaction with that executive director and his team. The team that's going to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, they are having individual conversations with the chief medical officer. The team that was at Kind Inc. today, they had a 1-hour meeting with the president of that company, so on and so forth. So it's not just the intellectual learning that's taking place. These kids are learning things like, when you send an email to the president of a company, you better make sure that the subject line catches his attention. You better make sure that the email is as concise as possible. You better make sure that if he says, call me at 3 o'clock, that you are calling at 2:59 and 59 seconds. And when you have the opportunity to spend that time with that person, make the personal connection, follow up with a thank you note. All the things that we know kind of go into the long-term relationships that we have with business partners, so that down the road, you may have an opportunity to provide more value to that person. You may be in a position to ask a favor of that person. You may be in a position to connect that person with somebody else. So I think a lot of it is going to vary, but what I've seen very much in the social entrepreneurship class, what I've seen our middle school students doing with their multiple partnerships with local organizations is develop those relationships with people that maybe don't necessarily result in any concrete partnership now, although often they do, but that will have long-term consequences for where they go to college, what internships they get during the summer, what jobs they may be seeking and finding after college. So I have a hard time saying anything more concrete than that, but there is a kind of an intentional approach with our students in developing that.
They're developing an app, like they are for Kind or suicide prevention. Somebody's got to run that.
Yeah.
Have to maintain it, and then partnership. Are they giving the app and the technology and their intellectual property, whatever it is that they've developed at that time, to the partnership? Or is that going to remain here in Malvern, and that's going to remain part of the partnership, or are you still trying to figure it out?
Well, I would say we're trying to figure it out insofar as the work that the guys are doing now will probably terminate in terms of the academic year. By the time May rolls around, when they're done with the class, their work will terminate at the prototype phase. And then it will really be up to them to decide, well, this probably could take off. If we kept running with this, we can test it out. And so, for example, Kind, I'll use them as the example, they are going to donate a significant quantity of Kind bars to see if this experiment works. And if it does work, then that's going to go into the summer and maybe into the next year. I can't speak to whether that would actually happen, but if it does, it's definitely an opportunity that our students will have. And we have plenty of people in the Malvern community, members of our board of trustees, alumni who are IP attorneys who can help them think through, like, if you're going to enter into a real official formal business partnership where you might have some skin in the game, these are the questions you should ask. You should really hire an attorney, those sorts of things. Our school year just doesn't go long enough for us to get that deep into it, but that's very much the kind of thing that we're already talking about with kids, that if you want to keep doing this, you can, and here are some things that you'd want to think about. Yes?
I'm Brian Swannick. First of all, let me congratulate my mountain brother, Eric. Really great speech. Very interesting career. He may not be a genius, but I think he was ingenious. And that's so much. Great to be here tonight. I'd like to propose a new biannual tradition various professors. I'd like to nominate Steve Valiant as the first recipient.
Thank you. What other questions do you have? And are there any that have come in online? Yeah. Yeah.
Where is Malvern in design for STEM?
Great question. The question is, where is Malvern in designing for STEM or STEAM, as Ryan would want us to do? So I mentioned that in October, we had a full one-day session with the University of Notre Dame's Center for STEM Education, and that included some local thought leaders and partners for us. And I mentioned one team internally that's focused on fine-tuning our modified block schedule. But we have another two teams. One is focused on redesigning the 9th and 10th grade learning experience, and another that's focused on redesigning the 11th and 12th grade experience. These are still a couple years away in terms of execution, but one of the questions that each of those teams needs to think about is how do we integrate science, technology, engineering, and math and the arts into a kind of coherent approach in the upper school. So the middle school, which is led by Pat Sillip, has had tremendous, extraordinary success in redesigning the 6th grade, which happened last year. This year, both the 6th and the 7th grade have been redesigned. Next year, that whole project will culminate in the 8th grade summit experience, and then the year after that will be the 9th and 10th grade redesign. And Pat is leading the 9th and 10th grade redesign team. That's a question that team thinks about and talks about. And recently, that team and Pat went out to High Tech High in San Diego and spent some time seeing how they do it and figuring out what good ideas do we want to steal from them, but also, what are the things that are going to be unique to Malvern that a school like High Tech High can't do, which really gets back to our mission. And Ron Algio, the head of our upper school, is leading the 11th and 12th grade redesign team. So I don't want to speak for them, and I'm not sure that there really is anything that's particularly concrete, but one of the great opportunities we have because of our very close relationship with the University of Notre Dame is this ongoing discussion, and we do hope to bring them back to campus to show them some early designs, get their reactions and their response as leaders in STEM education. Yeah.
How's the overall teacher buy-in to the academy model moving forward in the upper grade?
Yeah, so the question is, how is the overall teacher buy-in for the academy model? I would say that for the middle school, they've been thinking about it for so long now that it's just sort of a given for them. And the upper school, I think, has been thinking about it for just as long, but maybe in a different context, which is to say that because they knew that there was more time before it actually rolled up into the high school, they had the liberty of doing more experimentation and trying things out without the pressure to do something systematically. So, MECCO has always been around as a long-standing example of project-based learning. The social entrepreneurship class is new, but we could probably spend the rest of the night with going through a laundry list of places where individual teachers or departments or grade levels are experimenting with a different kind of assessment or a different kind of lesson. And then there are also lots of things that are outside the classroom as well that are kind of blurring the lines between what it means to be a student. So, one example I would give is the Blackfriar Chronicle, which has a student and its moderator here tonight, has done increasingly impressive work with their publication. And I would argue that the learning that they do, both in the brainstorming to generate ideas for stories and the interviews that they conduct, the writing, the editing, the building of the actual physical newspaper, the maintenance of the website, their conversations for ongoing professional development with journalists, their participation in conferences, they're learning as much and arguably more than they would learn if they took a kind of a journalism class. And actually some of them do take a journalism class, which feeds into their work in the Blackfriar Chronicle, so there's that great synergy there too. So I would say, across the upper school, you would see varying levels of activity, but you would see a consistent commitment to the kind of approach that we're taking more systematically in the middle school. Other questions? So one last thing, which is really just a reminder, on the website, I showed you a couple screenshots of that by the numbers page. There will also be answers to questions that were submitted online in advance of tonight. I think we got maybe 14 or 15 questions, and so virtually everything we do internally as a faculty and staff is done in teams. So you'll see responses from different teams according to what question is being asked. But there will also specify, the page will specify who you can reach out to, what particular individual you can reach out to for more information if the answer either is incomplete or it triggers another question for you. So I would encourage you to visit that site. And please give us feedback. We've never put that up before. We do intend to maintain that in an ongoing way so that it's not just once a year that you find out these really important facts and figures about Malvern. So if there's anything that you really like about it, please let us know that so that we can keep doing it. And if there's anything that you think can be tweaked or done differently, please let us know that, because we are committed to constant improvement in that regard. And I will end by saying thank you very much for coming out tonight. And if you tuned in online, thank you for dialing in. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks.